It started as a simple 4-H project and turned into a dairy built upon family, innovation, and technology. In this episode, we continue on with our series from Hornstead Dairy in Brillion, Wisconsin, where we hear from Brian Horn today as he shares how a passion for cows evolved into a progressive, technology-driven operation. Hear how this multi-generational farm is using internal monitoring tools to stay proactive, efficient, and ahead of the curve. That and more here today on the Uplevel Dairy Podcast. This episode is brought to you by smaXtec. smaXtec is a health management system for dairy cows. The unique bolus technology measures internal body temperature, water intake and drinking cycles, and rumination and activity. For more on smaXtec, check out the links in our show notes. So, Brian, I've had the privilege of talking with your daughter, Amber, this morning, and that's given us a perspective on these last 20 years or so here at Hornstead Dairy. But you've been here for quite a while. Is this your home farm?
Yes.
Yeah.
Hornstead was the prefix I came up with when I was in 6th grade for my 4-H project.
Whoa, okay. We got to go there for a moment then. So the 6th grade 4-H project, how many animals did you have?
Probably when I was that age, I think we had we never milked, just our old stanchion barn held 53 cows, but we could never milk just 53 cows. And I can remember after complaining to my dad all the time about why do we got to milk all these cows. And then one day he set everything down and kind of explained to me why that was. And I put that rather nicely because I don't think he was in the mood to really explain that day. And he kind of explained why we do that. And it was so we could pay the bills. Is why we had more cows than what fit in our barn.
So you've been farming for a long time, right here, and your early beginnings of your own herd and creating that Hornstead prefix go back to your first 4-H project animal.
Yes, they came from a farm across the road.
So a few things have changed since then. So just talk a moment about technology. When you look at your career as a dairy farmer, like, how has technology changed the way that you farm?
Well, I mean, I think we're relying much more. I mean, earlier in our conversation, we were talking about how we moved that office upstairs in 1990. But well before that, we relied on things. Our technology was basically DHIA. It was called the herd management option, and that gave you a list of cows that were due to dry up. There were a list of cows due to calve. It was based on things you entered into when the tester came. You had your breeding sheets, and that was our technology back then. You had a barn chart. Every time the inseminator came, he would fill out a receipt, and you'd use that and a pencil and a notebook. You kept notes basically, and when the veterinarian came, you had your herd management option because it had cows to pregnancy check on there, and you'd take that with you, and then you would record. So that was probably the earliest, if you want to talk about computer technology. So there was always things that we were trying, but the one that was probably tried and true was the DHIA one. What are some other technologies? You could use, whole herd dry treatment. That's evolved from the T-tip sealants that you put on the outside to now the tubes that you put in the cow to, even mastitis tubes. I mean, we gone because of a prototheca outbreak here years ago. We basically, that's probably 15 years already that it's been since we used the lactation tube in a cow. You're doing more systemic treatments in the animals, and just, we don't blindly just treat animals anymore. I had mentioned in that office that we talked about the use of culture plates and having an incubator on farm. I mean, those were all things that kind of evolved. There was a time when you'd collect samples and send them somewhere to have that done, and then once we could do them right on farm, you could make those decisions right on the farm and make them much quicker.
So now, Brian, and when you talked about these advancements that you've implemented here over the years with technology and record keeping, and also speeding up the ability to make decisions faster. What I sense from you is that there's been an attitude here for a long time of progressiveness, efficiency, and taking care of cows, especially as you guys have grown and scaled over the years. Did you ever think that there would be a day where you and the team here would be able to pull up a screen on the computer and look at data points that were being provided from a bolus inside of a cow that could tell you everything from rumination to temperature to water intake, even pH? Did you ever think that day would come?
Actually, it's kind of funny that you mentioned that because it's like everything that comes out new. This product came pretty well supported. People are floored when I tell them we give the cows a bolus. Still fairly new. There's more and more people now in the last, I think we've been doing this maybe 2 years, 3 years?
You have been watching different types of technology that, as they were started to be introduced, not always ready to quite jump in on something super new, but like when the temperature monitoring came out, the activity monitoring through the pedometer. Well, then one day someone shows up here and provides those pieces of information plus the rumination all in one bolus that goes in the cow and stays there.
Right.
What were your first reactions?
Well, how long
that?
does it last? Can you do that? How well are they picked up by? Because we ran into that when we went to the parlor technology. There was some real issues in 2017 as far as ID in the parlor. That was our first to have milk meters that read. We had tried a couple things in the parlor. We had a temperature monitor that came from an equipment company. I can't remember the name of it. The whole problem was it didn't record to anything. It basically, when you were milking, you had to be there to see the temperature. I actually put regular DHIA meters in my parlor. I had clean and placed the meters that I had bought so we could get a daily milk weight. So, we were trying things like that, and we didn't even, as far as there's technology all over the place.
So it sounds like you've always been pretty open-minded to new technology.
Yes.
But also with, as you mentioned before, questions of how is this going to work and how is it implemented? Same thing as you said, when you start looking at these boluses, how does this work? How much does this require of us to make it work? And even right down to where is it going? What's it doing inside the cow? So those are a lot of the questions that you had. And Amber, when I had spoken with Amber, one thing that she talked about was really, this technology came to her at a time when she was really struggling with figuring out a challenge in the repro program. And,
Yes.
And as she started doing her research, she had to take it to the board for approval, right? Which you're part of that board. And so it started out as a trial with a select group of cows and boluses in those cows. And now, a couple years later, fast forward, every cow has a bolus. So take me back a couple of years. What was that defining moment that really said to you, let's go all in on having these boluses in every cow?
Well, they're going to bring ideas. I have ideas. Not every idea I ever brought here worked. It's more of them have worked. You only got to be right a little better than 50% of the time, right? I always argue at school that they have that percentage so high in life. If you're right over half the time, you're probably pretty close to right. But not everything you try works. Not all technology is great. It's tough to screen that stuff. I think you got to let people try some ideas. And like I said, not all my ideas ever panned out either. I've got some really tall blue tombstones around here that their time has come and gone.
You mean your harvester?
My harvester silos, yeah. To me, I think she was finding things in the cows that had boluses that she wasn't finding. They weren't finding in ones that didn't. I think I mentioned that a little bit earlier. So we were struggling with some reproductive things and relying pretty heavily on the off-sync system. But it was really funny how the we've gone to having a breeding technician here 1 day a week. Those guys are here all the time. So we've been breeding with, for a number of years, we've been breeding with 2 AI companies. So we've got 2 different AI companies in here, which brings a lot. They each have support teams that you can kind of feed off and use their for ideas and stuff, how to improve your reproduction. And also it tells you if one guy is struggling, maybe it's him. But if both guys are struggling, maybe it's the farm, something you're doing on the farm. I don't know if that goes on a lot of farms or not, but it's been very helpful here because that's what tends to happen. You want to blame somebody, or a lot of times nutritionists get thrown under the bus for things that they have very little control of too. Sometimes it's, your own feed. Sometimes your biggest problem stares at you in the mirror every morning when you look, and you got to be aware of that too. But so this was a way that we're breeding at different times, and I think that's really helped. The activity, they've got algorithms that determine that when that good time of breeding is, and I think it's been proven to work out very well here for that.
And when you think about what you're able to see here, with rumination monitoring, activity monitoring, and all of these additional data points collected from right inside the cow, temperature, water intake, pH. Do you see this as having lasting and staying power at a dairy like yours? The ability for so much information to be gathered from a cow without anyone having to touch her.
Yeah, I think that's what's really important because, when computerization started coming to the farm, that was what was really, Dairy Comp was you can take that from farm records for bookkeeping and things like that. In a way, that's kind of, it's gone along the same path as farm record keeping. Well, smaXtec has their people that analyze data. They're looking at certain points. People away from the farm, they're getting real-time data. To be able to have that much data on that many cows effortlessly, how do you beat something like that? We've gone from locking up all the cows every day and trying to take their temperatures to having the temperatures all taken for you already. You just go from there. You got your list of things ready to go. It's a different way of looking at cows. I think, they were finding things proactively instead of reactively.
So you've really been able to just see the difference in the way day-to-day flows around here. And whether that is in the barn and in the way that people are handling cows, for example, gathering temperatures. There probably not that long ago was a time where you could walk through the barn right across from where we're sitting right now, and they'd be temping cows, right? Well, that's one less time that a person has to touch a cow
Right.
for just that one thing based on what you talked about, and that was an initial effort to insert a bolus, right? Like pretty crazy when you think about it.
Yeah, I mean, they have to. I mean, there's obviously a procedure they need to follow when they put that bolus in. It isn't. I mean, they need to know what they're doing, but that's the effort.
But that's the effort.
That's the effort that goes into it. That pen, the temperature of those animals in that pen. You have an idea of who you're looking for in that pen. It doesn't replace going out and walking amongst the cows, but it puts you a step ahead.
And what you're saying too, I think, Brian, is that you can see those things, but what do you no longer have to do that allows you to see the bigger picture, right?
Right.
And it's some of those pieces of data that now Amber or Steve, the nutritionist, or the vet or the herd manager, they're able to pull up on their phone or pull up on the computer. And so do you think it leads to better overall management?
Well, I think it's allowed us to, how should I put it? Laura and I didn't want our kids to have to grow up or start dairying the way we did, essentially being prisoners to your operation. You're stuck here every day. I mean, there's things that there's times, Amber can know what's going on, and she's at a church council meeting, and she'll get on the phone and she'll get an alert, and she can have somebody look at something, and You get where I'm going? That
Yeah.
finding people with all this cow experience is difficult.
And I think you bring up something that I think is really important and relatable, Brian, and that's when you started out as a dairy farmer, there was this reality of being somewhat of a prisoner to the farm, right?
Yes.
You are your own labor force. Your kids are part of that labor force, and it's difficult to step away. Well, that was at 250 cows. Well, now you've scaled. So now you're over 2,000 cows. And what you're able to do now is have some technology and monitoring and data that you can rely on to be the hands and eyes to more cows and a predictor, right? A predictor of what could go wrong so that you can focus your time in other places. She can focus her time in other places.
It gets easier after a while, a little bit. Before, you were doing everything. You were feeding the fresh calf or the newborn calf, taking care of the fresh cow. You had to do all that with, now you can assign somebody. So when you have 8, 9, 10 calves in a day, well, somebody now is in charge. That's somebody's job to be in charge of that. And when you don't have calves being born, well, you got a list of things you're supposed to be cleaning or things that should be looked at or whatever. Like I said, it doesn't mean you don't have to be around.
Yeah, and that's part of that growth and that progress of more cows, more people to manage, but also being able to delegate more.
Cows are easy, people are hard.
That's what they always say.
That's what they always say. That's exactly right.
Well, and it sounds like that having more technology here and at your fingertips, more data, and what you're able to get through smaXtec and the boluses has helped to make cows even easier and also empower more people to be able to take care of them.
They've had to be trained differently than what they were previously because they're doing things differently than what they were before. And now there's more, I think there's more proactive things. How should I put it? I've become spoiled to know that they're all being monitored. So it gives you a little peace of mind in what you've got going on. Peace of mind can be worth a lot.
Sure can. And when you think about this next generation, Amber's part of that helm of the next gen right now. There's also a generation coming up from her children. And are there other family members too? And
Well, we've got, I keep telling her that we've got an awful lot of tractor drivers around here. We need some cow guys, is what we need, and try to get some more cow people. I think we need more cow people.
So they either need to be cow people or you're going to selectively help them marry cow people. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, I don't know. There's one way. There's more than one way. There's more than one way to do it. Maybe that's another approach. I've got 2 grandsons that have graduated from high school, and we know their interests lie in agriculture, and I think that that says something because they've seen that and they're impressed with that, and at least enough to delve into that kind of stuff. So that's impressive.
That is. And that generation is so in tune with technology.
I think they're less fearful of it than what maybe my generation is, and sometimes you got to know what you don't know.
And as someone who has implemented different advancements in technologies over the years, in some cases even created your own solutions, if someone were to come to you and be in your situation, your boots of, okay, you've got a next generation that's on the farm and they're coming into decision making, you're still part of the decision process. And if one of your peers said to you, hey, my son or daughter wants to implement this type of technology for monitoring in our herd, what would be your advice to your own peer?
It's got to at least make a little bit of sense to you what they're trying to accomplish as to why is it that you need that technology? What's that going to do for us? What are you going to improve? And I think if you can do that, you gotta let some people run with some things. I mean that would be my advice. But you gotta let people make some decisions like that. But like I said, that all holds to, we've got other technologies and other places on this farm too. like using GPS for yield data on crops and stuff like that. We've got some of those projects, going on too. Her brother's working on those. I mean, those are projects too that, where's the return on what we spend?
I think what you've alluded to here is the bigger picture of having a viable product, a sustainable farming business, and strengthen the future. And that comes with the data that makes decision making easier, builds better cows, better herds,
Yeah,
better management.
My late father would tell you, if you're standing still, you're going backwards. I mean, that was something, I was only how big, and he was saying that already. So that mindset has been around for generations. Like you said, there's a push forward for what's that latest thing that saves labor, what's going to keep you, what keeps you going, what keeps you ahead of the competition, right?
And you continue to do that here.
Right.
Yeah. Well, Brian, this has been fun visiting with you.
Oh, yeah.
You just heard from Brian Horn of Hornstead Dairy. For more episodes in this series, check our show notes. His story reminds us that progress doesn't mean leaving the past behind, but rather building upon it with purpose. I'm Peggy Coffeen, and thanks for listening to the Uplevel Dairy Podcast. Don't forget to follow, rate, and share wherever you get your podcasts. As always, keep on growing, keep on learning, and up-leveling your dairy. This episode is brought to you by smaXtec. smaXtec is a health management system for dairy cows. The unique bolus technology measures internal body temperature, water intake and drinking cycles, and rumination and activity. For more on smaXtec, check out the links in our show notes.